It was a typical Saturday evening at the restaurant, one of the busiest nights of the week. I had been working as a waitress here for about 2 years. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and I liked it. There was something fulfilling about making people's nights special, even if I spent most of my shifts on my feet and running around. That night, I was assigned to one of the front tables near the large windows overlooking the city street. It was a prime spot, usually reserved for reservations or special requests. Just as I finished serving another table, a woman walked in, her heels clicking sharply on the tiled floor. She carried herself like she owned the place, head held high, designer bag swinging from her arm, and an expression that screamed entitlement. She didn't wait for the host to greet her. Instead, she pointed toward my section and demanded, "I want that table, right by the window." The host hesitated, glancing at me, and I nodded reluctantly. We weren't supposed to accommodate walk-ins at reserved tables, but something told me this woman wasn't the kind to take no for an answer. The host seated her, and I approached with my usual friendly smile. "Good evening, ma'am. Welcome. Can I get you started with some water, or perhaps a drink from our bar?" I asked. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Just bring me sparkling water, no ice, and hurry up, I don't have all night." I bit my tongue, nodded, and went to fetch her drink. When I returned, she was still glued to her phone. I placed the glass gently on the table and handed her a menu. "Here's the menu, ma'am. Do you need a few moments to decide?" She sighed dramatically, finally glancing up at me. "Do you even know how to do your job? I've been to 5-star restaurants around the world, and this is the slowest service I've ever seen." Her words stung, but I kept my composure. "I apologize, ma'am. I'll do my best to make your evening enjoyable." She rolled her eyes and dismissed me with a wave of her hand. Throughout the night, she continued to nitpick everything. The soup was too salty, the bread was too dry, and the entree took far too long to arrive, even though the kitchen was swamped. Each time, I apologized and tried to make things right, but nothing seemed good enough for her. At one point, she called me over again. "Do you even enjoy working here? Because it shows that you don't." I felt my cheeks flush. "I do enjoy it, ma'am. Thank you for your feedback." She muttered, inspecting me like I was some kind of insect. "I guess not everyone can aim high in life." Her words cut deeper than I expected. I wanted to say something, anything, but I reminded myself to stay professional. After all, this was my job, and I couldn't let her ruin it for me. As the night wore on, I noticed a change in her demeanor. She started glancing around nervously, as though she was waiting for someone. Her confident air began to falter. When her food arrived, she barely touched it, instead scrolling anxiously through her phone. Finally, she stood up abruptly and headed toward the restroom, leaving her designer bag on the table. Moments later, a man entered the restaurant. He was dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, his demeanor calm yet commanding. He looked around, spotted her bag, and walked toward her table. I assumed he was joining her for dinner, so I approached him with a warm smile. "Good evening, sir. Are you dining with the lady at this table?" I asked. He raised an eyebrow, then glanced at the bag. "No, but I do need to speak with her. Do you know where she is?" "She stepped away to the restroom," I replied. "Can I get you something while you wait?" He shook his head. "That won't be necessary." The woman returned a few moments later, and when she saw him standing there, her face turned pale. "Oh, I didn't think you'd come here," she stammered. "I didn't think I'd need to," he replied coolly. "But your card was declined again. This is the 3rd time this month." I tried to discreetly step away, sensing this wasn't my place, but I overheard enough to piece things together. It turned out the man was her landlord, and she was behind on her rent. Despite her designer clothes and haughty attitude, she was struggling financially. The woman's face burned with embarrassment as she argued quietly with him, but there was no hiding the truth now. After a tense exchange, the man left, leaving her to sit alone at the table, staring down at her untouched plate. When I returned to clear her dishes, she avoided eye contact. "I'm ready for the check," she mumbled. I nodded and brought it over. As I placed it on the table, she finally looked up at me. Her eyes were different now, softer, almost apologetic. "Look," she began hesitantly, "about earlier. I didn't mean to be so harsh." I paused, taken aback. "It's okay, ma'am. Everyone has tough days." She nodded, fiddling with the edge of the napkin. Yeah, tough days. She paid her bill, barely leaving a tip, and left the restaurant in silence. As I watched her walk away, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. She had treated me terribly, but seeing her facade crumble reminded me that everyone has their struggles, even those who seem to have it all together. This story is a reminder that we never truly know what someone else is going through. It's easy to judge others based on their actions or appearances, but beneath the surface, everyone has their battles. A kind word or a bit of patience can make all the difference. What types of stories inspire you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories that remind us of the power of kindness, resilience, and understanding.